final hours before polls close across the country Tuesday night.
These races couldn't get any closer.
There is an electricity in the air, the likes of which I and you have not seen since the 2016 election.
The range of outcomes in the House is really wide. No one should be surprised if they only win 19 seats.
This is the most important midterm election that we have seen probably in our lifetime.
The attention that this midterm cycle is getting is just unbelievable. It's unprecedented.
What will be interesting is the extent to which the Trump coalition shows up and is transferred on to other Republican candidates.
We are going to work, we are going to fight, and we are going to win, win, win.
Side, that's the square I'm talking about. The right side, that's a tent. That's our party tent.
That's more of a rectangle.
Celebrate.
It is so cool. When we walked in this morning, it is all set up. The guys and girls have been working so hard all weekend to make it look so beautiful. If you're out in the New York area, stop by. We're all going to be out there tomorrow. It's going to be an exciting day. Right. One more day, Brian.
Right. All the anchors have been asked to stay overnight, so we'll be sleeping there. Some will be on the air, some will be sleeping. We'll just be able to rotate, almost like we're on 24-hour watch.
Right.
And we'll be live there tomorrow morning, even though I brought my coat today, and I forgot to bring it last week. Good thing I have a T-shirt.
You were planning ahead this week.
Yes, this week I am.
This is going to be a better week for you, Brian.
And we're doing the radio show from out there, too, so it is truly a place to go from around the... I could see this being the place to be from around the country, not only New Yorkers, people flocking in just to be a part of it.
So crossroads of the world.
You probably would have been. I probably wouldn't have been off saying that.
Yeah, okay. Anyway. So listen, because we've got all this great coverage, you are invited not only just to watch on television, but if you're in the area, stop by. We'll be live tomorrow, and tomorrow coverage through the evening.
But again, we might be sleeping, so please whisper.
I don't think people are going to be asleep. People are so excited.
No one can sleep. We're all on pins and needles.
Because it's being called one of the most important elections of our time. The president said that yesterday. The march to the midterms all comes down to how people vote tomorrow.
All right, voters, here we go. Just one day away from hitting the polls and determining the crucial races.
President Trump rallying Republicans in his final push with 3 rallies today. He had some yesterday as he's making the stakes crystal clear.
This election will decide whether we build on this extraordinary prosperity that we've created, or whether we let the radical Democrats take a giant wrecking ball to our economy and to our future.
So that was the president yesterday. Today, Griff Jenkins joins us live in Orlando, Florida, with a look at some of the key Senate races. Hey, Griff.
Good morning, guys. This is Ground Zero in Florida because Democrats in the Senate see a narrow path to possibly gaining the majority. You heard that right. They need a net total of 2 seats to take the majority from Republicans, who have a 51-49 majority. The 5 states that are in the toss-up column are Florida here, as well as Nevada, Missouri, Indiana, and Arizona. Let's look quickly at those races in Florida. You have incumbent Bill Nelson has a 1.7% lead over Governor Rick Scott. In Nevada, you've got Senator Dean Heller, the Republican, holding a 1.4% lead over the Democrat challenger Jackie Rosen. By the way, Heller is the only Republican defending a state where Clinton won. In Missouri, it's dead even, 43%. Claire McCaskill and Josh Hawley absolutely facing down in one of the toughest races in the nation. In Indiana, you've got a toss-up. Democrat Joe Donnelly has a 1.2% lead over challenger Mike Braun. And in Arizona, out there in the land of rattlesnakes, you have Democrat Kirsten Sinema and Martha McSally in a dead heat, 46%. It is really going to come down to the last minute and the early voting numbers combined with tomorrow's turnout. But also in the House, we should point out finally, guys, that Democrats have a better chance of regaining control. They need the magic number of 23 seats. There's about 38 toss-up seats in House races across the country. Democrats need 23 to regain control. It's going to be exciting. And here in Orlando, we're in the I-4 corridor where the most swing votes are. We'll be hitting it hard for you today.
All right. Thanks, Griff. It's good to see you on the road for a change.
All right.
Does he ever go home?
I know.
I mean,
You'll be able to
so
see
bad.
your wife and your family in 2 days, Griff.
Absolutely.
You saw him a little bit. You know what's interesting? How many times over the last year have we heard people say, historically, the president's party loses ground in the midterms? That always happens, with the exception of a couple of times. They continue to talk about that, but not regarding the U.S. Senate. I mean, you look at the races that Griff talked about, and the party insiders with the Democrats say privately that North Dakota, Indiana, and the great state of Missouri are all at risk. That bucks historical trends. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, overall, you got 35 Senate seats, 36 governor races, and it's almost inverse. The Republicans are up against the odds with the governor's races, and the Democrats are up against the odds in the Senate races with 435 House seats. What I find astounding is from the Cook Report to Frank Luntz to 538, famously, they all said, well, here's where it's trending, but I don't know.
Right.
Because this thing was decided on Election Day last year, and as Frank Luntz said last night, he says, I am not sure. He goes, I have the least faith in the polls than I've ever had this time.
Even the pollsters are saying don't trust the polls. The president is out and about, y'all. He has had 11 rallies, or will after today, in 6 days. He is crisscrossing this country. Today, Cleveland, Ohio, Fort Wayne, Indiana, and then he's going to end in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, which is home to Rush Limbaugh.
I was just in Missouri, and they are so fatigued with politicians. They said we got President Obama across town, we got Donald Trump today, with the vice president is here all the time. They just cannot wait for this to be over.
Claire McCaskill and Josh Hawley, neck and neck.
And it just seems like Hawley, who had a 2-point lead, seems to have dissipated in the last poll. He canceled a couple of TV appearances just to get back on the stump yesterday.
Well, I think the president has talked so much about his historic win in 2016, talks about how he has gone and he has tried to run the table, going everywhere. That's what he's doing this weekend and today. And if you miss him, here's the president making his final argument.
There is an electricity in the air, the likes of which I and you have not seen since the 2016 election. This is one of the most important elections of our time. I don't know if I rate it more important than the last election, 16, but it's right there. Democrats want to invite caravan after caravan of illegal aliens to pour into our country. I don't think so. I don't care what the fake media says. That's an invasion of our country. This election is about safety and it's about prosperity. America now has the best economy in the history of our country. Jobs are going up. Crime is going down. Wages are rising. The contrast in this election could not be more clear. Republicans produce jobs. Democrats produce mobs. But this is the greatest political movement in the history of our country, maybe ever. We are going to fight, and we are going to win, win, win.
The one with the opposite message, President Obama trying to get as big a crowds, not getting there. President Obama seems more desperate now than even in 2008 and in 2012 to get Democrats out to the polls, except for I just keep hearing the same thing that we heard for 8 years he was in office. He has one promise and there's a different result. Now he wants to come out and just blame President Trump. I am not sure he's converting anybody. I feel like he's talking to the converted.
Well, the top two issues are, on the Democrat side, health care by a sizable margin, and then on the Republican side, the economy. What's interesting is the Democrats do not have a plan on the economy, aside from they have suggested that they would roll back taxes and regulation. But yesterday, the president was talking about, regarding health care, he said essentially he would protect pre-existing conditions. He said, quote, the Republicans will protect people far better than the Democrats. The big question is, will the people in the middle buy it? Because those independents are the ones who will decide these elections.
Well, we saw in 2016 what the polls said. And everyone likes to look at a poll because we all like to predict what's going to happen.
We're lazy.
That's right.
We want to know who's
There's
winning.
so many different polls out there. There's an NBC Wall Street Journal poll, and it shows that both parties have gone up. There's more interest, more enthusiasm in both parties. They've Like in October, 50% said they were voting Democrat. Now 51% say they are.
Right.
In October, that's right, 41% said they were Republicans voting for Republican candidates, and now that's up to 44%.
Right, but the problem with the generic congressional ballot is it looks across the country.
Yep.
The congressional ballots really break down to 435 different seats across the country, and so it's a district by district fight. And generally, a lot of these candidates can't afford $30,000 for the poll, so we don't know exactly how things are going to turn out.
Here's the tough thing for Republicans. While I agree with you, the economy should be number one for Republicans because it is such a big check mark.
It's a winner for them.
I was talking to a Trump official last night who said, unfortunately, history says that the economy is only a factor when it's bad. Because when it's good, people have trouble appreciating it. That's why they believe that immigration is their number one topic, even though in the perfect world, the cerebral world, and not the emotional world, the economy would be number one. Where there's a fear of taking away health care, there's your big thing for
So candidates
Democrats.
do better with the fear?
They do better for the fear.
Versus
there's no board. There's no control at the border. Nobody seems to care.
And Democrats say health care.
Exactly. That's what they fear. But when people sit down, if they really fear their economic success is going away, that's one thing. But we're not sure people fear that.
Well, there's a lot of enthusiasm, record amount of enthusiasm for a midterm, many would say. The races are very close. Go and vote tomorrow if you want your voice heard.
And one number's beyond reproach. President Trump in 2015 had 40% approval with Republicans. It's now 89. That's how much power he has on the stump. He has galvanized the party.
Well, we'll know exactly how galvanized the parties are Wednesday morning. Correct. But in the meantime, on this Monday morning, Jillian's got the news.
Hi, Jillian. Good morning, and we're starting with the Fox News alert now. The Trump administration unleashing the toughest sanctions ever on Iran overnight. The move coming hours after protesters took to the streets in the Middle Eastern country to burn U.S. and Israeli flags while chanting death to America. Iran's President Rouhani says the nation now faces a, quote, war situation. The penalties target Iran's oil, shipping, and banking sectors. They were previously lifted under Obama's 2015 nuclear deal. A fallen American hero is coming home. Major Brent Taylor's remains will arrive at Dover Air Force Base today. Taylor killed in Afghanistan while on a leave of absence from his job as mayor of North Ogden, Utah. Friends describe him as a great father, committed to his wife and 7 children.
We are overwhelmed with heartache, but not regret. His commitment to his country, to his family, to his belief system was absolutely real and full of integrity.
And a GoFundMe account for them has raised more than $211,000 so far. And our viewers always do a great job in participating in donations. To help, you can head to foxandfriends.com. A massive house explosion overnight, so powerful it was felt a state away. The gas explosion reducing a mansion to rubble in suburban Philadelphia. People in New Jersey as far as 20 miles away reported hearing and feeling the blast. Some comparing it to a meteor strike. Others say their homes were shaking. There were people on the property during the explosion, but incredibly, no one was hurt. Celebrities like Chelsea Handler are known for being outspoken when it comes to politics.
In this day and age, I'm all for bipartisanship, but like right now, you can't be a Republican. Like, come on.
Well, she's now among dozens of celebrities aiming to fire up young voters today in the Telethon for America. Despite participating celebrities' left leanings, organizers for the streaming event say it's a nonpartisan effort to boost young voter turnout. What do you think?
Well, we'll see. You'll have to tune in and find out.
Sure.
It's online, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Nonpartisan.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Meanwhile, you just heard President Trump say he has not seen this kind of enthusiasm since 2 years ago. Will that carry over to the voting booth tomorrow? David Brody has been on the trail with the president, interviewed him last week. He is going to join us live next.
This is one of the most important elections of our lifetime. We have made extraordinary progress in so many ways, and yet we're just getting started. There is electricity in the air like I haven't seen since the 16 big victory that we all had together.
Huge crowds showing up to rally with the president in the final midterm push. So what does this enthusiasm mean for Election Day?
CBN chief political correspondent David Brody just traveling with the president to one of those rallies and sat down with the president, too. He joins us right now. Enthusiasm, not only do we see the big crowds, David, 33 million have already voted. We're en route to 100 million people showing up for the midterms. What do you think that means for the result?
It's huge, guys, and I like to kind of term it BK and AK, before Kavanaugh and after Kavanaugh. You know, leave it to the Christians to put it in those type of terms. But look, this is what's going on. The Brett bounce is real, and because of that, we're seeing a lot of record crowds out there. I was in Florida with him last week, and it was interesting. He said, look, this is huge. And then he started to go into kind of one of those, he's off prompter, and he said, in terms of 2016, well, you know, maybe it's not as big as 2016, but you know what? In a way, he may be right, and here's why. Yes, the enthusiasm is there. There's no doubt about it in terms of 2018. The asterisk here is that he isn't on the ballot. It is true. Yes, his agenda's on the ballot, all of that, but he's not. And we know, guys, there's a book called from Drew Weston, The Political Brain, talks about people vote with their heart, not with their head, and they vote for the candidate themselves. And if Trump's not on that ballot, the question is, will it make a difference? It could at the margins. We'll see.
Well, I know you work for CBN, the evangelical base. Let's talk about that. Most important issue for many of them was the Supreme Court issue. The Kavanaugh effect, we heard about that. That was a few weeks ago, though, now. Have people forgotten about that? Will the evangelicals get out to vote?
The sense is they will. The question is how much. And here's the deal. The statistic is 26% of the electorate, typically in a midterm, is made up of evangelicals, 26%. So the question is, can they be north of that number? They got to be at least 26%. That's the number I'm going to be watching on Tuesday night. If they are below 26%, that's not a good sign for the president, for the Republican Party. We did talk to Jenna Browder, my colleague, and I talked to the president on Air Force One, and he talked about this. He said, look, I have the evangelicals. I love them. They love me. Of course he's going to say that. But the question, he even admitted in the interview, he's not sure exactly if all of them are going to show up in 2018 like they did in 2016. So even he's wondering about it.
Yeah, instead of trying to convert, he tries to get everybody out. That's why he's going to the areas where he's got the popularity. We'll see if that strategy works. Get his supporters to vote rather than convert some people to vote for him.
Well, and there's a multiplier effect, as you guys know. It's one thing to see a 20,000-seat rally. That's great, and it looks like it's 2016. The question is, those folks that are at the rally, are they going home and telling their parents and their grandparents and everybody else? I don't know. Tell a lot of folks. I guess that's what they're doing.
David Brody, thanks so much.
Thanks, David. Great to see you.
Coming up next, what issues matter to our veterans? With 24 hours to go into the polls, Army veteran Pete Hegseth sits down with a round table of those who fight for the country.
You've got to be your own man.
Got some quick headlines for you on this Monday morning. First up, the trial for notorious Mexican drug lord El Chapo begins with jury selection later today. Joaquin Guzman faces life in prison after allegedly taking part in dozens of murders and smuggling more than 200 tons of cocaine. 200 tons in the United States. The feds say El Chapo's adult children have taken over his billion-dollar cartel. And are you a U.S. citizen? The Trump administration heading to federal court later today to defend adding that question to the 2020 census. The lawsuit challenges the move, argues the question is meant to scare immigrants into not responding. The Trump administration says it will help enforce the Voting Rights Act. And that is some of the news, but then there's this.
Americans head to the polls tomorrow. That includes you. And traditionally, veterans have a higher voter turnout compared to non-veterans. So what are the issues that matter most to those who serve and the veterans themselves?
Pete Hegseth, he sat down with 4 of America's heroes to find out, and he joins us now. What a team you sat down with.
You know, amazing. After the show yesterday, I had a chance to sit down with 4 of my favorite people on the planet, 4 great patriots, warriors, veterans. I mean, Marcus Luttrell, the lone survivor, his fellow Navy SEAL Rob O'Neill, the guy that shot bin Laden, Medal of Honor recipient Dakota Meyer, and Sean Parnell, who served one of the longest tours on the Afghan-Pakistan border. 85% of his guys were wounded on the border. And I just said, here we are a day out from the election. What are vets focused on? What matters? What's the state of our politics? And we had a candid conversation. Take a listen. Warriors and veterans go to the polls tomorrow, or generally. What are they voting on? Sean, I'll start with you.
Well, first of all, I just want to say I've never seen so much intensity and fervor around a midterm election in my lifetime. The attention that this midterm cycle is getting, it's just unbelievable. It's unprecedented. But for me, I just think, veterans that raise their right hand to volunteer to serve this country and they go overseas and they get broke and they come back, they fight and bleed for their benefits on the battlefield. They shouldn't have to fight and bleed for their VA benefits here at home. And I want to make sure that everybody in this country is galvanized behind helping our veterans when they get back and making sure that they have access to the health care that they need.
Absolutely. Dakota, how about you?
I mean, it's the exact same thing that, Sean said. I mean, I agree with that. The benefits that veterans are, that they're, I mean, I'm going to say that they fought for, right? That they should be getting. People are going to stand up for it. But even more importantly, like, for me, it's like, I want somebody who's going to unite us, right? Somebody who's going to come in and they're going to vote for what's right, not necessarily, just I'm going to vote this way just so I can stay in and get reelected, right? I want somebody who's going to come in, they're going to stand, they're going to make a difference, and they're going to actually stand.
That's a great point.
You guys are fighters. What do you think of the political fight? I mean, we're in such a political season. We want to be united, but right now, both sides couldn't be further apart.
We need more veterans in Congress because right now people care more about their party than they do about the country. And what's the point of resistance? I mean, what veterans will do is, Democrat or Republican, we'll get in the same room.
Exactly.
And we'll talk about it, try to find a middle ground. It's not going to be on the far left or the far right anyway, but this just resist, impeach nonsense. It's like I said, I want this person to win so we can get one more vote so my party can. That's nonsense. I mean, it's all about America. I mean, the train's rolling.
What's going to be on your mind on election night, Marcus, as the polls are coming in?
If I could say anything, it'd be take a look at your military and at your veterans and see that we come from all walks of life, and every person you're letting your political world kind of corrupt the life. We're all a family here, and kids come from everywhere, and we fight, we get together, and we defend this country together.
Do you see a difference in guys that are serving now from under commander, because it's one commander-in-chief at a time. You serve under that commander-in-chief. Do you see any difference now, Sean, between President Trump and Barack Obama?
Well, I mean, in terms of policy, absolutely. In terms of the heart and spirit of the warfighter, no. I mean, I didn't raise my right hand to volunteer to serve because of who is the president. Part of being a warrior and the archetype of a warrior is putting your country first all the time. And I think that is the core of what we're all saying up here is that we just desperately want our politicians to come together and put America first. And I feel like for decades in this country, it's always been party over country.
Yeah. That's a great point. Is America first a partisan slogan, or is that ultimately what we're all talking about here?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, too, because I served under President Clinton, President Bush, President Obama. And something I've noticed, even with everything from morale and all this stuff, what I've noticed is it's the problem is not the person who's in the White House for 8 years, it's the dude who's in the Capitol for 40 years.
Yeah. That's right. I totally agree.
Who politicize wars and make missions more complicated and maybe don't fund the military properly.
But I think the only way we're going to fix this problem that we see in America right now with the parties going so divided, not being able to talk, just all this nonsense that's going on, is when we have more veterans running. Like, they're the only ones who's going to come in and dial this thing back in. I mean, we've already fought for our country, and now we got to come back and we're going to have to fix our country.
A lot of common sense from these guys. And if you like what you heard here and you want to get even more into it, on Sunday night, November 11th, after the election coming up on Sunday night, we're going to air an hour-long special on the channel called Modern Warriors, a Veterans Day special, 8 p.m. Fox News Channel. 1 hour with those guys. Awesome. We got into a lot of deep issues: vets, service, sacrifice, the military. Rules of engagement, the kind of stuff that veterans of our generation are talking about. So it'll be a cool special.
And a little bit later, somebody else is in the eye of the storm, Dan Crenshaw, who was a special operator who's running for office and got mocked for losing an eye in battle.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Saturday Night Live. Why don't we make fun of the guy who lost his eye in an IED blast in Afghanistan? Right. So out of touch in the bubble here in Manhattan.
He tweeted about it. He's going to join us later in the show to
very
talk
cool.
about it and get his reaction.
He's a great guy.
All right, Pete, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Pete.
All right, meanwhile, these would-be house thieves thought they had the perfect plan, but there's one thing they didn't count on: the fact that when you've got a doorbell like that,
Brian,
you can talk to them and scare them off.
The Ring doorbell caught him. Brian has one of those.
Or it could be Simply Safe. It's one of those others.
Could be the other one.
I've got the Google one.
Oh, you do? Fantastic.
Also, guys, Democrats are shifting left as they try to win the younger voter.
Health care is a human right.
Tuition-free public college and trade school.
Medicare for all.
Well, will their plan work? Our political panel's here to discuss that. Coming up next.
And I know if you live in Kansas or Vermont, health care is a human right and not a privilege.
We should protect families that need our help, and that is not what ICE is doing today, and that's why I believe you should get rid of it.
Tuition-free public college and trade school will ensure that no child refuses to get an education because they don't believe that their family can afford it.
And that is why I'm proud to stand with my colleagues and friends and support Medicare for all.
Democrats have shifted further to the left than ever in an effort to appeal to their younger, more progressive base. But so far, by moving so far to the left, have Democrats hurt their chances of winning back control of the Congress? Here with the conversation on this Monday morning is our Power Political panel. We've got screen right, Molly Hemingway, senior editor at The Federalist and a Fox News contributor. Right in the center, Teslin Figueroa, former National Justice Director for Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign. And way over there on the left, James Freeman, giving us a thumbs up, the assistant editorial page editor at The Wall Street Journal and a Fox News contributor. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
Good to be here.
Okay, so who wants to open this up? Why have the Democrats, some of these Democrats, moved so far to the left?
I wouldn't necessarily say they move far to the left. I would say that it's all, the question is going to come down to who's authentic and who's not. A lot of these people were nowhere to be found when we were on the campaign trail. They have switched their position like a mattress, flip-flop. 1 minute is one thing and the next minute is
but
another.
We got videotape.
Yeah, right. But we'll see if they actually put those things in place. If they win, even Bernie Sanders said not to abolish ICE, then it is abolish ICE. So I think the problem and why they'll lose voters and why they'll continue to lose support is because they're just flat out not telling the truth on what they can actually get done and what they actually believe in.
But I think there's actually a very real debate in the Democratic Party about which direction to go. Do you want to moderate or do you want to go far to the left? And I think no matter what happens on Tuesday, that's going to be the most interesting debate of the next 2 years. And I don't think there's a lot of clarity about the right direction.
But who do we believe?
Well, I think the danger is if the Bernie Sanders left actually means it. And you look at the details here, I think they've gone very far to the left on health care. Republicans really haven't talked about it too much. But the Bernie plan, which has been endorsed by most House Democrats, is to end Medicare, end all private insurance, all of us going into a new government plan. This has really not been talked about much on this campaign. I think it should be. The stakes are enormous.
But James, when you describe it like that, it sounds great. Until you look at the bill.
Yeah.
Then where does that money come from?
Well, it's not just the $33 trillion over 10 years, new tax burden basically crowding out all government spending to make room for it. It's also quality of care. And when you look around the world at countries that have embraced socialized medicine, the results are not pretty. Long lines, waiting to get operations, this kind of thing. This hasn't really been discussed, though. And I don't know if it's because people can't believe he really means it, but if you have a large Sanders contingent, a Democratic majority in the House, watch out.
But also the number one issue with Democrats is health care because they've been very effective. It's not like they've got a plan for how to fix it. They just go, when the Republicans got rid of the individual mandate, they did that with the tax cut. How are they going to undo your health care next time? And that's a problem.
I think partly the issue there is that there isn't much of an agenda going forward for Democrats. A lot of what this campaign has been about is opposition to Trump, and that's a good message for Democrats. But there isn't a lot going on with the actual what would happen should they have the power. Healthcare is one of those issues that does well for them.
Teslin, a moment ago, you said who you trust. We were having a conversation in the green room. The polls that are out there right now, you do not believe. Why?
No, I mean, all we have to do is look back in 2016 and see that the polls are not accurate. When you talk about polls and people do not want to say who they're actually supporting because they'll be ostracized. This happened to me. People don't want to say, what they actually believe in because they'll be either put into some box. People assume that I'm a certain way because based on my gender, based on my color, even though I can tell people repeatedly I'm an independent, I'm not a socialist, but people just tend to not want to get into that debate. This is about the economy versus emotions, and people really don't want to make that decision to say I'm voting on the economy because they feel that they're a traitor to their friends, their family, and their loved ones. So people just won't be talking about it. I don't even think Thanksgiving dinner will probably, won't be the best on that this year because people just don't want the fight. They really don't. And so I don't believe polls. I just don't.
But I also think that what we were told for the last 2 years is there was going to be this huge blue tsunami that Democrats were going to take over the House and the Senate. And right now we're sitting here. Yes, they'll probably take the House. They probably won't take the Senate. This is so dramatically different than what we've been told for 2 years, and it's partly because of how successful the Republican agenda has been, also because of the extremism of the left.
Had the election been last year, there would have been a blue tsunami.
Oh, absolutely.
No doubt, no doubt. And you see that change since the Republicans enacted tax reform in December. Right. I think that's what has given the Republicans a chance to buck history. Midterm elections usually very rough for the president's party. But everything they basically predicted about the tax cut has come to pass. We've had this capital investment boom we saw on Friday, tremendous job growth. So I think that economic argument gives them a shot.
Plus, Trump's personal approval rating is much higher than it was a year ago.
But he's been relentless with campaigning. You know, when Obama won and the midterm usually kind of goes away, everybody's kind of on their own. This is the complaints of Democrats. So he's been relentlessly campaigning, pushing, where Democrats have not rallied around a message.
Part of the reason why he has been relentlessly campaigning is because it's good for the party, and it wasn't good for the Democratic Party to have Barack Obama out there. The gap between the approval and disapproval has shrunk 13 points since last December. Right.
Okay. So, show of hands, who thinks the Democrats are going to take the Senate?
Oh, no.
Throw you. Who thinks the Democrats are going to take the House?
Sure. They probably won't take that.
Okay.
Close. Right. And who thinks will they get anything done? Anybody?
All right. This great panel today. It's going to be back in a little while.
Great.
Molly, Telson, James, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 20 minutes now before the top of the hour, and Jillian joins us right now. There you are.
That's right. Good Monday morning to you, Steve. Good morning to you at home. Nearly 4,000 migrants now traveling through an area pushing north, a region of Mexico where hundreds of people have disappeared. They are presumed to have been kidnapped by criminals looking for ransom payments. They're risking the dangerous route despite President Trump's plan to sign an order barring immigrants from claiming asylum in the U.S. Republican congressional candidate Dan Crenshaw firing back after an SNL skit mocked his war injury.
You may be surprised to hear he's a congressional candidate from Texas and not a hitman in a porno movie. I'm sorry, I know he lost his eye in war or whatever.
Whatever. A lot of people angry about this. In 2002, Crenshaw was hit by an IED blast in Afghanistan and lost his eye. The former Navy SEAL now tweeting his response to SNL saying, quote, "Good rule in life, I try hard not to offend. I try harder not to be offended." That being said, I hope SNL recognizes that vets don't deserve to see their wounds used as punchlines for bad jokes. He joins us live in the next hour. Make sure you stay tuned for that. A soldier disguises herself as a school mascot to give her son the ultimate surprise. Look at this.
Great.
Oh, that's Sergeant Desiree Lancey bringing her son Cale to tears in front of his classmates in Alabama. The two haven't seen each other since she was deployed to Kuwait a year ago. That's look at your headlines and a special moment for them.
No kidding.
Yep.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Hey, that gets you right there.
No, the soldiers do so much for us.
Thank you, Jillian.
All right. Thanks, Jillian. 18 minutes now before the top of the hour. It's one of the closest governor's races in the country. Ron DeSantis, the congressman, Andrew Gillum, the mayor, neck and neck in Florida with 24 hours to go. Ron DeSantis joins us live next.
Plus, Sean Spicer will be here, Senator Lindsey Graham, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, and Karl Rove. They're all here live this morning, just one day until you, America, goes out to vote.
The Magic Cube.
With less than 24 hours until polls open, it's a tight race for the next governor of Florida. President Trump rallying for Ron DeSantis this weekend as the latest Real Clear Politics average puts progressive mayor Andrew Gillum ahead by under 3 points.
Joining us right now with reaction on a busy campaign morning on this Monday, Ron DeSantis. Congressman, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us from Jacksonville.
Good morning.
You know, we've heard so much about the early vote down in Florida, and there have been so many people lined up for hours to vote early. You combine that with the absentee ballots requested. What can you tell about the party demographics about who has already voted?
Well, Republicans, we've done better in that than we've ever done. I mean, when the president won Florida in 2016, Republicans were down significantly going into Election Day. Now, we always win Election Day, but this time we were able, with the absentee and early, and I don't have the final data, but we are either ahead or very close going into Election Day. And today, on Monday, the Panhandle still has early voting because of the storm. So you're going to have Republicans rack up some more votes today. And here's the thing. We have a lot of our super voters as Republicans will not vote early or absentee. They want to vote on Election Day. And so I think the momentum is on our side. I don't think we could have asked for a better turnout for Republicans for mail and early voting. And we know we're going to get a good turnout on Election Day.
Congressman, what's your reaction to the average of all the polls? The Real Clear Politics polls have Gillum, your opponent, ahead, not by much, within the margin of error. But what's your reaction?
Well, look, I mean, if a poll is saying there's going to be a Democratic wave, we know that's not true because Republican turnout is very strong. And so you have to look at how they're doing it. I think some of these polls say there's going to be 40% independents. We've seen about 18% so far. So that's just the way it's going to be. So I think Republicans are going to have an advantage in terms of turnout for the election. And I think I'm going to do well with independents. And so that's the formula for success in Florida.
Okay. From the outside perspective, you guys could not be more different. He wants to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. He wants starting pay for teachers at $50,000 a year. He wants to expand Medicaid coverage. He also wants to up corporate taxes in the area, and he wants stricter gun controls. Do you interact and do you intersect with him at all on any of those?
No, I mean, he wants a 40% tax increase. Florida's economy is humming. We have an opportunity to drive historic investment into Florida on top of what we've already done. Right. You raise taxes 40%, you're going to lose jobs, businesses are going to leave, and you're going to stop the flow of investment into Florida. It would be a historic mistake. He's also somebody, though, who's always supported higher taxes. And all the spending you just mentioned, there was a nonpartisan think tank that analyzed that. They said the only way you could pay for that is to raise the sales tax to 38%, or to impose a state income tax. You do either of those in Florida, our economy is done.
Congressman, one of the things that people in Florida are really concerned about, the red tide and the green algae, the green goo. What would you do as governor to try to get rid of it? Because it's a big problem down there.
No, absolutely. So we will have great appointments to the water management boards, people from the coastal communities that understand the effect this has had. We'll cut down on pollution going into Lake Okeechobee, and we will construct this reservoir south of Lake Okeechobee so that you can take the water, the polluted water, clean it, then send it south to the Everglades and Florida Bay. But you've got to be able to work with the federal government. I'm going to work with the president on it. I've talked to him about it countless times. Andrew Gillum wants to impeach Trump. Well, how the heck are you going to be able to work with him to fix our water resources problems? He's not going to be able to do it. So I'm the only candidate that will be able to get that done for the people of Florida. It's a very, very important issue because the water really affects our entire foundation and our entire economy.
The impact's going to be great. The candidates couldn't be more different. Do your homework, make a choice. We asked Andrew Gillum to come on. We have not heard back. We've got to check our voicemail again. So we'll maybe tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you.
All right, what do voters in Tennessee have to say about President Trump's rally last night? Todd Pyro is there. He's having breakfast with our friends in Chattanooga. We're going to check in with him.
Plus, what happens if Democrats win back the House tomorrow? A big promotion for Adam Schiff, and that's not all. Lisa Booth brings us down the potential shift in power, pun intended.
Good morning. With less than 24 hours until polls open, it's a tight race for the next governor of Florida. President Trump rallying for Ron DeSantis this weekend as the latest Real Clear Politics average puts progressive mayor Andrew Gillum ahead by under 3 points.
Joining us right now with reaction on a busy campaign morning on this Monday, Ron DeSantis. Congressman, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us from Jacksonville.
Good morning.
We've heard so much about the early vote down in Florida, and there have been so many people lined up for hours to vote early. You combine that with the absentee ballots requested. What can you tell about the party demographics about who has already voted?
Well, Republicans, we've done better in that than we've ever done. I mean, when the president won Florida in 2016, Republicans were down significantly going into Election Day. Now, we always win Election Day, but this time we were able, with the absentee and early, and I don't have the final data, but we are either ahead or very close going into Election Day. And today, on Monday, the Panhandle still has early voting because of the storm. So you're going to have Republicans rack up some more votes today. And here's the thing. We have a lot of our super voters as Republicans will not vote early or absentee. They want to vote on Election Day. And so I think the momentum is on our side. I don't think we could have asked for a better turnout for Republicans for mail and early voting. And we know we're going to get a good turnout on Election Day.
Congressman, what's your reaction to the average of all the polls? The Real Clear Politics polls have Gillum, your opponent, ahead, not by much, within the margin of error. But what's your reaction?
Well, look, I mean, you know, if a poll is saying there's going to be a Democratic wave, we know that's not true because Republican turnout is very strong. And so you have to look at how they're doing it. I think some of these polls say there's going to be 40% independents. You know, we've seen about 18% so far. So that's just the way it's going to be. So I think Republicans are going to have an advantage in terms of turnout for the election. And I think I'm going to do well with independents. And so that's the formula for success in Florida.
Okay. From the outside perspective, you guys could not be more different. He wants to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. He wants starting pay for teachers at $50,000 a year. He wants to expand Medicaid coverage. He also wants to up corporate taxes in the area, and he wants stricter gun controls. Do you interact? Do you intersect with him at all on any of those?
No, I mean, you know, he wants a 40% tax increase. Florida's economy is humming. We have an opportunity to drive historic investment into Florida on top of what we've already done. Right. You raise taxes 40%, you're going to lose jobs.